Hello and welcome to Adventures in the Once Upon a Time Family Tree. The family tree that I will be going over today is the family tree as of the end of season 6. So, this does not include any characters that get introduced in season 7, no Wish Realm characters. I tried to keep this as simplistic as possible, and even then, that's a bit of a stretch. So, this family tree will only count romantic relationships, engagements, marriages, parent child dynamics, and sibling dynamics. I do have a little bit of a color key that'll explain the different colors that you'll see in the family tree, but let's take a look at the whole web before I get to that. And here's our family tree we'll be talking about today. So for color, so you can get a sense of what each of the different lines can mean. So for our color key, we've got red, which denotes any romantic relationship that did not involve a marriage. Purple is for marriages. Green is going to denote a parent and child dynamic. Black, as you see here, is going to denote a sibling dynamic. And blue is going to be what I call an undefinable relationship. So that's something that occurred that may be a personal relationship, but is not entirely romantic in nature. So this may include either engagements such as arranged engagements or a case of one person is in a relationship to trick the other person. That's what that line means. So we're going to start at the center. The easiest place to start is Henry Mills. Just to complete his one romantic relationship that we're going to go through, because again, this is just through season 6. In season 5, he gets a girlfriend. That is Violet from Camelot. That's where that branch ends. Now, as we move upward, Henry's parents, his biological parents, are Emma Swan and Neil Cassidy. And we're going to start on Neil's side and then come back around to Emma's. Neil was originally named Balefire. He is the son of Rumpelstiltskin and Mila. Now, when Bay was about 3 years old, Mila ran away. We'll get to that later. But centuries later, after Balefire ran away, Mila ran away, everyone runs away from Rumple. Rumple does fall in love with Belle, and they do get married, and they have one son, Gideon. And that makes Gideon and Neil/Balefire half-siblings by way of Rumpelstiltskin. Before she fell in love with Rumple, Belle was engaged to Gaston. That's why we have a blue line here, because that engagement was for an arranged marriage. But before Belle and Rumple had Gideon, Belle did kind of give him a little bit of what he deserves and threw Rumple out of Storybrooke, and in that time, she had a romantic relationship with Will Scarlet, the Knave of Hearts. And just to complete Belle's end of the branch, Belle's parents are Maurice and Colette. Colette dies the first time we see her. Now, back to Rumple, his parents are Malcolm and Fiona, otherwise known as Peter Pan and the Black Fairy. Fiona wasn't always a fairy, but when she learned of the fate that would befall her son, she turned herself into a fairy to sever him from his fate to save him, but then she ended up getting banished. Malcolm didn't want to be a father, or at least not without Fiona if we take the entire show into consideration, but he did give up his son in exchange for eternal youth on Neverland, turning him into Peter Pan. Now back to Mila. So as I said before, she left Rumple when Bay was about 3, and she left Rumple to run away with Killian Jones. Now years later, after Bay has already left Rumple for the Land Without Magic, he sees the two of them again. He subsequently kills Mila and cuts off Killian's hand, turning him into Captain Hook. Killian is the son of Brennan and a woman named Alice, whom we never see. He has one full brother in Liam. As we find out in later seasons, he also has a half-brother, also named Liam. That's where this little triangle here is going to end. But back to Bay. So after his foray in Neverland, he ends up in the Land Without Magic, and he goes by the name of Neil Cassidy. The first romantic relationship we see chronologically is with Emma, and together they have Henry, as we said before. After this relationship with Emma ends because he sends Emma to jail for him because August told him to, we see years later he ends up in a romantic relationship with Tamara, but as we later find out, she didn't actually like him, even though they did get engaged. She was actually with Greg Mendel the entire time, and the two of them work for Peter Pan. And that is where this whole sector of the family tree comes to a close. So let's move over to Emma's side of the equation. Emma Swan is the daughter of Snow White and Prince Charming. They also have one other son, Neil, who they name after Neil Cassidy. I would say spoilers, but we're over 10 years out from when this happened. Neil is named after Neil because he sacrifices himself to save everybody from Zelena. Emma has 3 main romantic relationships on the show that we see that go beyond just one kiss. The first one being Neil, which ended in Henry. The next being Emma and Walsh, otherwise known as the Wizard of Oz. This is their relationship that happened in the year that she lived in New York City with Henry when they didn't have their memories of Storybrooke. But as it turned out, he was actually spying on her for Zelena. So again, that's why we have the blue line. And lastly is her relationship with Killian Jones that ends in them getting married in season 6, hence the purple line. So up to her parents, we've got David/Prince Charming. He is the son of Ruth and Robert, and he has a twin brother, James, who got adopted to King George as part of a deal with the Dark One. After James's death, David has to pretend to be him so that he can go through with a prearranged engagement with Princess Abigail. She is the daughter of King Midas, but that engagement falls through when they recover her true love, Frederick. For the sake of closing off this little sector, I just felt like pointing out these two romantic relationships of James that we see on screen, mainly because they're funny. One of which being Jack, as in Jack in the Beanstalk, and the other being with Cruella de Vil in the underworld after his death. Mainly, if I have to remember that this happened, so do you. Now off to Snow White. Other than David, Snow has one other romantic relationship. Again, it's not shown on screen. I'm not going to include Snow's one-night stand with Dr. Whale because that would make this family tree more complicated than it already is, and it's already pretty complicated. But she does have one other romantic relationship that we see on screen, and that is with Hercules when she was a teenager. Snow's parents are King Leopold and Queen Ava, both of whom have run-ins with Cora all throughout their stories, so we're going to jump over to her real fast. Cora, otherwise known as the Queen of Hearts, had a one-night stand relationship with Jonathan, who is a man who she believed to be a prince at the time. Turns out he wasn't. However, that one-night stand did result in a child, and that was Zelena. When Cora was trying to cover up for this pregnancy with Zelena, she did find Leopold. She made him fall in love with her and ended up causing him to break off his engagement with Ava. But when Ava found out that Cora was already pregnant by somebody else, she told Leopold, broke off their engagement, and then the two of them got married and had Snow. Following this, Cora had another run-in with Ava in Prince Henry's castle. Following this altercation, Cora claims that she can spin straw into gold and is locked away in a tower to prove it, and she is taught how to do this by Rumpelstiltskin. At first, he makes a deal with her so that she will owe him her firstborn child so that he can teach her his magic. But after they fall in love, he amends that so that she owes him only his child. However, Cora can't go through with it and takes out her own heart so that she can marry Prince Henry. And together they have Regina. So this means that Regina and Zelena are half-sisters via Cora. And it's worth noting here, because they are both connected to him with a blue line, Regina and Zelena both have some level of on-screen intimacy with Rumpelstiltskin. That's about as far as I'm going to go with that. It's neither romantic nor anything else, but it felt pointing out. Mainly as a point here, he is neither of their fathers. That is emphatically not how that works. But zooming in on Regina. So Regina's true love is Daniel the stable boy. But in an attempt to make her daughter the queen, Cora kills Ava, forcing Leopold to look for a new queen. She sends Snow's horse wild so that Regina will save her. Leopold then proposes to Regina. Cora accepts. Regina and Daniel try to run away together. However, Snow tells Cora about what happened so that Regina doesn't lose her mother. Cora kills Daniel. Regina marries Leopold. Years later, Regina learns that she has another true love in Robin Hood, thanks to Tinkerbell. However, she doesn't actually go to meet him. She doesn't meet him until years later. So in the meantime, he marries Marion, and they have Roland. Now, in the original timeline, before Emma messed things up, she did die. However, years later, after the two of them have met, they think they're broken up by Marion coming back from the dead or coming back with Emma through the time portal. However, it was actually Zelena the entire time masquerading as Marion. Again, this is why this is a blue line. It's an undefinable relationship. It's not romantic. It's not anything else. However, it does end in them having a daughter, Robin Mills, which makes Robin and Roland half-siblings via Robin. Following this altercation, we find out that Zelena has her own true love, and that is in the god Hades. That ends badly, but it is true love nonetheless. And to complete this one big, chaotic, maybe sometimes happy family, after all of these mixed connections and romantic relationships and pretending to be people and all this other stuff, what completes this entire loop is that through all of this, Regina adopts Henry, Emma's son, which makes Regina Henry's adoptive mother and also his step-great-grandmother. Although I will admit, once Regina sends Graham off to kill Snow, I don't think she's really her stepmother anymore. That's just a personal opinion. But it's a connection nonetheless. And that is the simplest way I could explain the Once Upon a Time family tree through season 6. You're welcome.